Today is a study breakdown episode. We're anchoring in a body of research, not a single paper, specifically the converging evidence from three domains that together reveal the plastic paradox in its full scope. Edward Taub's constraint-induced movement therapy for stroke rehabilitation, Eric Nestler's molecular research on delta phosphate accumulation in addiction, and Guang Yui's landmark experiments on imagined exercise and muscle strength. Each of these lines of research, taken alone, tells a fascinating story. Taken together, they tell a profound one, that the brain's capacity for change is morally agnostic, that every adaptive circuit has a pathological shadow, and that the most effective interventions, both clinical and traditional, don't fight plasticity. They redirect it. The ritual science connection today is this. Constraint-based healing practices, from Taub's CI therapy in the rehabilitation clinic to monastic constraint practices like fasting, silence, and enclosure, all exploit the same principle. Strategic deprivation doesn't weaken the brain. It forces the brain to reorganize. Remove the easy option, and the nervous system builds new pathways to compensate. This is one of those episodes where the synthesis between modern neuroscience and ancient practice is so tight it's almost eerie. Let's begin with the thinker. Part 1. Edward Taub and the discovery of learned non-use. In the 1960s and 1970s, a behavioral neuroscientist named Edward Taub, working at what was then the Institute for Behavioral Research in Silver Spring, Maryland, was conducting experiments on monkeys. He surgically severed the sensory nerves to a single forelimb, a procedure called deafferentation, so the monkey could no longer feel that limb. Even though the motor nerves controlling movement remained intact, the limb could still move. The monkey just couldn't feel it. What happened was striking. The monkeys stopped using the affected limb entirely. Not because they couldn't move it, but because every time they tried, the lack of sensory feedback made the movements clumsy and inefficient. The failure was discouraging. The other healthy limb worked fine, so the monkeys simply stopped trying. Taub called this phenomenon learned non-use. Then came the critical insight. Taub restrained the healthy limb. He put it in a sling so the monkey couldn't use it. Forced to rely on the deafferentated limb, the one it had abandoned, the monkey began using it again, clumsily at first, then with increasing competence. The limb hadn't been broken. The brain had simply given up on it because an easier option was available. Beginning in the late 1980s, Taub translated this principle into a human rehabilitation method called constraint-induced movement therapy, CI therapy. The protocol is elegantly brutal. For stroke patients with a weakened arm, you restrain the healthy arm in a sling for 90% of waking hours over roughly 2 weeks, while the patient practices intensive structured tasks with the affected arm for 6 hours a day. The results were extraordinary. Stroke survivors who had been disabled for years, patients the medical establishment had given up on, recovered substantial use of their affected limbs. Brain imaging showed that the cortical representation of the affected arm, which had shrunk after the stroke due to disuse, expanded dramatically after CI therapy. One study using transcranial magnetic stimulation showed that the excitable cortex devoted to the affected limb doubled in size after just 12 days of therapy. The American Stroke Association described Taub's work as being at the forefront of a revolution in stroke recovery. But here's the detail that matters for the plastic paradox. The reason the affected arm's cortical territory had shrunk wasn't just because of the stroke damage itself. It was because of competitive plasticity. When the patient stopped using the affected arm, learned non-use, the brain's cortical real estate didn't sit idle. It was actively colonized by other functions, particularly by the unaffected arm, which the patient was overusing to compensate. The healthy arm was cannibalizing the neural territory of the damaged one. Plasticity wasn't just failing to help. It was actively making the disability worse. CI therapy works not by strengthening the weak arm through exercise alone, but by removing the competition. Constrain the dominant circuit, and the suppressed one has no choice but to activate. The brain, deprived of its easy option, reorganizes. This is the plastic paradox in clinical form. The same competitive plasticity that made the disability worse is the mechanism that enables the cure, once you change the constraints.